Let's punch up the Western Conference standings because something happened last night, and there is nothing out there. There's nothing out there that unites this planet more than when the Lakers are absolute trash. All they had to do was beat the Suns last night, and they would stay alive in the playoff race for the play-in. It's just like really sad. And you know what? They didn't. So now it's like LeBron James like, hey, you got any more of them playoff spots? Our analyst this morning, Jeff Pratt, DraftKings contributor Jeff Pratt, and Mr. Nick Friar. Nick, did you wait up late last night to watch the demise become official?
No, because you know already that they're matched up against the Suns, whether they're going to rest guys or not. You say all they had to do was beat the Suns. The Suns are one of the best teams in all of basketball right now. So, yeah, of course. And the Lakers are just an absolute dumpster fire. And as a guy who grew up in Boston, I will say that I do feel terribly for Lakers fans. This is awful to see. You bring in a superstar and you expect him to win games, win titles. And he's only done it once out of 4 years. And the other 3 years, it's been, it's been pretty useless. And you bring in another superstar in AD who, of course, was outstanding in New Orleans. So this is very sad.
Oh, yeah. I know you Celtics fans absolutely love to see this pain, don't you? This brings you joy, doesn't it, Pratt?
Absolutely. I don't have too much to add, but I think you guys know where I stand on this issue, Emerson. So I had a good night last night. I didn't need to watch the game because, like Nick said, I knew it was going to happen. But it was fun waking up this morning.
I mean, Pratt, like real talk, how disappointing though is this like overall? Because they had like I believe it was the second best odds, right? Was it behind the Nets or did they have the best odds? They were like top two, like top three for sure. Like I don't know if we've seen something like this before, at least in recent memory, right? Like a collapse like this, or I guess not meeting expectations.
It's absolutely brutal. And considering the draft capital that they gave up to assemble this team and what they're looking at for the next few years, because they're going to look to offload Russell Westbrook. At least they're going to have to explore that. His contract's huge, so good luck doing that. Anthony Davis is extremely injury prone. Nick was saying LeBron, father time catches up to everyone. And when LeBron plays, he still looks like he's in his prime, but he's missing more and more games every year. The injuries, ticky-tack injuries are beginning to pile up. So it's not great for Lakers fans, and I can't say it's going to get better considering the draft picks they have moving forward, or lack thereof, I should say.
Yeah, I don't know if the immediate future, Friar, looks very bright for the Lakers. A lot of big question marks there, and doesn't look like, as Mr. Pratt just mentioned, a lot of capital there to restore confidence. But let's talk about tonight's 6-game slate here. Nick, who is your favorite big man to build around here? Like, which dude would you start at center?
So, of course, we had a big night last night, of course, with Jokic, of course, a guy you have to always consider rostering every single night. But then tonight, it looks a lot cheaper. Of course, you don't have those studs at center going. There are two guys that jump out to me, though. One that can save you a little bit more money, one that's on the higher end, at least of the guys that are available tonight. Nikola Vucevic, I think, is a guy you have to consider with Robert Williams not available for the Celtics in the short term. As much as the Celtics are an elite defensive team, any big man right now that's playing, you don't have time where there to stop him at the rim. And I know that Vucevic can stretch the floor a little bit. And Horford is adept to handling guys like that. Same goes for Grant Williams, but still he's a presence at the rim too, and I think that's going to be tough for them to combat. And then Clint Capella is the guy who I like a little bit more, 6.3K going up against the Wizards. This is the highest total on DraftKings Sportsbook for the night. The Wizards have hit the over, sixth most of any team this season. The overs they hit the over in their last 4 games too. Wizards are also 25th in defensive rating, and then when you look at Capella, he's provided 5 times value or better on this price tag in 5 of his last 6 games.
Pratt, who do you like at the 5?
I'll be a little bit more blunt than Nick. This is a really ugly slate for centers. The most expensive option is Kristaps Porzingis at 8,400, and I just don't think it's worth paying up for him or Rudy Gobert. Nikola Vucevic, I consider. As Nick was saying, the Celtics don't have Robert Williams, although it is the Daniel Tice revenge game against Chicago. So take that as you will. But instead, I look at a few value options so you can pay up for another position with legit studs. Dwight Powell immediately jumps out to me at 4,700. He's checking all the boxes as a sub 5K option. He's seen an expanded usage rate over his last 3 games, is playing at least 20 minutes per game with potential to go over 30. It is coming off a huge 42.3 fantasy point performance in which he racked up 22 points and 13 boards. Isaiah Hartenstein is another cheap option I like, who's a little bit more expensive at 5,400. He scored 28 plus fantasy points in 6 of his last 8 games, establishing himself as a key rotational player for the Clippers as they gear up for a postseason run. He's played 22 or more minutes in 7 of his last 8, is really efficient, and does a lot of damage on the glass. I think throwing one of those two options in your lineup is a good idea.
All right, yeah, Daniel Tice turning 30 yesterday, by the way. So let's go to the forwards department here, Mr. Pratt. Who's a guy at this position you'd like to build around? I see your boy Tatum is sitting up there, one of 2 forwards north of $10,000.
He is. The top of this list of forwards is also a bit of a mess tonight, though. After KD, you've got Tatum, who's likely going to suit up, but it's not clear how much he's going to play as an important game awaits the Celtics in Milwaukee tomorrow. Kawhi and Julius Randle are obviously out. Jaylen Brown is in the same boat as Tatum, and Cade Cunningham scored 1 fantasy point last game. As a result, I think DeMar DeRozan might be your best high-priced option at 8,600. The matchup's brutal. Make no mistake about that. I'll toot Boston's horn as much as I can, but they're giving up the least amount of fantasy points to forwards in the league. That being said, we've seen that DeMar is going to get his points no matter what. The Bulls lost by 21 last night, but he still dropped 40 and finished with 52.75 DK fantasy points. He scored 50-plus fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 games, and I'd almost expect Boston to let DeRozan do his thing and just focus on shutting down everyone else.
All right, Friar, how expensive are you going to go here?
Yeah, this is the position I'm looking at. I see one guy that it's a cheaper option that you've got to build around. I think he's got to be in your lineup tonight. And I know we're kind of chasing, recent form and everything with Jalen Horde here, but at 5K going up against Utah, we're not sure if, Rudy Gobert is going to play tonight. Even still, if he does, they're on the second leg of a back-to-back too. So that presence at the rim may not be there, may not be as effective. This guy's grabbed 20 boards in 2 of his last 3 games. And at this price tag, I think you got to take a little bit of a risk on him. And yes, he might be a little chalky tonight, but when we're looking at a guy who can somehow put up 40 DK fantasy points at this price range, I think you got to consider him. As long as the minutes are there, he's going to have the opportunities to put up those numbers. And with Utah, again, being on the second leg of a back-to-back, I like his chances a lot more to reach that ceiling.
All right, Friar, need you guys to be quick here for building block at guard. Luka, top of this list, $12,000.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go back to that Celtics Bulls game, and I'm going to go on the Celtics side of it, going to go with Jaylen Brown. One of the bigger reasons being, you can look at all the stats, when you're talking about the value that he's put up, what he's done against Chicago this season, of course, important factors. But for me, one of the biggest things is that he is on the injury report for this game, as is Jason Tatum. Last time that happened, those 2 guys sat the next game for the Celtics. So I'm assuming that's going to happen to them again when they play the Bucks tomorrow. So I would think the Celtics aren't going to have those 2 hold back at all tonight.
Yo, Pratt, I know he's 12 grand with Luka, and saying a guy's guaranteed 60 fantasy points might sound like crazy, but he has a 62-point average over his last 24 games played.
Yeah, I saved that center so I could pay up for the most expensive player on tonight's slate. And you're exactly right, Emerson. It's Luka Doncic at 12K. You know what you're getting with him at this point. He scored 70-plus DK fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games, and he's the Mavericks' entire offense at this point. That's reflected in his usage rate, which has risen over 40% in 4 of his last 5 contests. The Pistons are the perfect matchup for him because they're not nearly good enough to slow Luka down, but they've been playing hard and keeping games close lately, so he probably won't be able to rest for an extended period of time. Detroit has also been pushing the ball more lately, ranking 10th in pace over their last 10 games. That should help create more opportunities for Luka as the Mavs rank dead last in pace on the season. The bottom line is, as you said, you're paying up for guaranteed production here.